Now we all know that Hytale is on its way. It's in development and being fleshed out as we speak. But while we spent 2020 looking at all the potential theories and facts, it hit me that there may be something we've overlooked. A hugely underappreciated aspect of gaming in general. It simmers on in the background regardless of if you're listening or not. In fact, what I'm talking about you'll hear in pretty much every video I've ever uploaded, subtly imbuing feelings of adventure and exploration. And that of which I talk about is, of course, the Hytale soundtrack. Welcome back to Kweebec Corner. My name is Connor, and today on Hytale Theory Talk, we discuss the beauty of Hytale's music. A highly requested topic for this channel, the OST or original soundtrack composed by Oscar Garvin is atmospheric and all-encompassing, but most importantly, it gives us teasers at the Hytale experience. So today we're asking, how does the music in the game relate to the lore of Orbis itself? And why is music so important in crafting a game's world? Before we start, I just wanted to say thank you so much. We just hit 50k. That's insane for a channel that covers a game that isn't out yet, but I appreciate your support all the same. It means so much to me that you all got behind this little passion project of mine and helped me grow it into something more. Of course, if you're not subscribed, then feel free to subscribe. You can click subscribe, maybe we can get to 100k if 2 people subscribe. For those of you not caught up, allow me to set the scene. Hytale takes place on the planet of Orbis, of which the main landmass is divided into 6 widely differing zones, all representative of some kind of element. Zone 1 is luscious and green like the Earth, Zone 2 is sandy and barren with howling winds, Zone 3's waters are icy and cold, and Zone 4 is volcanic, filled with ash and fire. Those first 3 zones that I described will be able to spawn in at the very start of our adventure, with Zone 4 appearing as a much more dangerous mid-game terrain, and Zone 5 and 6 being all but complete mysteries at this point. So far we've only had hints that they may represent the 5th and 6th element of lightning and void, and most certainly form the later to end game content. Within each starting zone there appears to be 2 warring factions, with their own origins, culture and conflicts. Quebecs and Trorks, Ferens and Scaraks, Fauns and Outlanders, etc. And as we spawn and explore the world's biomes, interact with races and adventure through dungeons, we'll likely be accompanied by the OST. And this is why having so many of those tracks revealed to us beforehand becomes vital to unlocking the secrets of this game's lore, or at least early aspects of our journey. Music is so important in setting the tone for a scene or experience. If you've ever seen someone's choreography and you notice they're popping to the beat, or you watch a music video that just works so well, or if you yourself pull out a killer move on the dance floor, or bang your head to a drop, then you understand that music is all about timing. Time not just in the rhythm and the sound itself, but the time and place at which the music is played. When music plays and where it plays, as well as how it makes us feel, the emotions it evokes at that particular time. These are 2 essential concepts that exist in music theory and help to guide a piece to its perfect cue or moment. There is a partially 3rd impact of time on music, and that is the span of which you've been exposed to a single piece. Many born in the 70s and 80s now feel huge nostalgia for the Star Wars theme in conjunction with the opening crawl. Many born in the 90s cry to the Pokemon soundtrack, and the noughties snivel up at a somber Minecraft song while the sun sets on an old world. At times, it feels like music can grow with us, becoming ingrained into our memory, a way of representing old thoughts, activating once lost feelings, experiences. And for gaming, that's certainly true. A movie soundtrack can span 90 minutes, but a game's soundtrack, well, you could be listening to that for as little as 30 hours. Game soundtracks need to be made to last. They have to be iconic, recognizable, and most importantly, reflect the experience of the player within the world. So, to kick off Theory Talk Season 2, with thousands of hours of gameplay in sight for us in Hytale, we're going to be covering 11 officially released musical pieces, plus 5 more secretive or lesser known tracks in between, starting from Zone 1 right through to Zone 4. And where else to begin, of course, with the most iconic piece so far, the trailer music. Made up of essentially the most important themes, instruments, and musical techniques, this track sets precedent for the world of Orbis. A combination of all Hytale has to offer, highs and lows, adventure and mystery, light and dark. We've recently seen an orchestra play this piece at the Northern Ireland Game Awards, allowing us to really experience the symphony at work here in this main theme. There's obviously a lot to break down, and with all these crazy goings on with music theory and me knowing, well, not as much as I'd like to, I've asked Slammer for assistance during this video. Slammer is the creator of all the fan-made Hytale lo-fi tracks I love to play on this channel. Her music is adored by the community, so make sure to check her out and subscribe. After I first noticed a few repeated sounds in some of the music, I asked Slammer to retrace the soundtrack for anything interesting, and we struck gold. To begin, she claimed there's this small 4-note pattern which appears all over the OST with lots of variety because of how simple it is, but it gives the OST a more unified feeling. It seems pretty significant too, considering it's even the first 4 flute notes in the trailer. This sort of repeated pattern is called a motif, and they crop up in almost every track in the OST. A New Adventure is one of the first pieces that was revealed to us, and naturally will accompany us in our journey through Zone 1. Before the first 3 zones became spawnable areas, Zone 1 was initially the sole starting ground for the player, explaining the name of this piece. Not only this, it was one of the first pieces ever written by Oscar Garvin for Hytale itself. He quoted, "I wanted it to feel like you are embarking on a new journey through the magical glades and breezy plains of Zone 1. Specifically, we know this will play during the daytime. In fact, both weather and time of day can alter the music being chosen by changing the tracklist. This track and others like it feature motifs that reflect elements of the region, while linking to broader themes of adventure and history. The idea that using the environments and conditions of the world as inspiration or even characters for the music helps it blend perfectly in conjunction with the location the player is in. The music reflects what you see, what you feel, while hinting back to the grandiose, overarching theme. A New Adventure is part of the exploration music category, within which both active and ambient tracks exist and play depending on circumstance as we wander around the world. Following this is the piece Traveling Band. Using very similar instruments, you can notice subtle imperfections and wood scuttles in the orchestration. Instruments stop and start out of time. You can hear the plucks of string. It gives this really geriatric vibe, something akin to starting a D&D campaign with a new group of random creatures and characters, travelling along as a bard strums away. There's also a connection here to the trailer music too, which we'll touch on later on. As the small band plays the instruments, you can hear the music taking on a life of its own as it builds up, culminating and then all at once quickly settling back down, leaving only the band remaining. Keeping in line with this idea of travelers and music ensembles, the next piece captures the idea of bands once again, harking back to the guitar we see in the opening shots of the trailer. Kweebec Village is the soundtrack to the various Kweebec settlements you'll encounter in Zone 1, and its tone and instrumentation reflect the personality of the Kweebecs themselves, one of the factions that exist within the world. Garvin says it had to be cute, light, and playful. Much of the instrumentation and harmony draws on my JRPG influences. The piece sounds like a small ensemble to create the sense that the Kweebecs themselves might be playing this tune. The piece incorporates ornamentation, like trills and other playful embellishments to the basic melody to make it feel fun and carefree, as per Kweebec nature of course. There are also the orchestral elements that we mentioned that thicken the sound, as if the Hytale soundtrack itself is getting behind a small Kweebec band. Hytale's music also helps us reinforce specific elements of the lore. I quote, "I made use of the main Hytale motif as a key building block when creating the melody for the very reason that the Kweebecs are important to the story." The type of motif that Oscar describes here is actually called a leitmotif, a short, recurring musical phrase associated with a particular person, place, or idea. For Hytale, the leitmotif is either those 4 notes we heard earlier, or that long melodic sequence. Motifs can be attached to certain places, but they can also travel with the player themselves. Harkening back to those notes in a later piece can always be powerful, and the soundtrack has many of these, including Herbalist's Refuge. This next track is intended to evoke a sense of peaceful exploration in the deep forests and green riverlands of Zone 1. While the region certainly has its dangers, it's also a place that offers sanctuary, and that has in the past enjoyed the protection of Gaia herself. Music has the power to make you feel the lore, even if it's not immediately apparent, Oscar says. This track certainly does feel like the player is taking in something to behold. This vast, sprawling array of life, a paradise unexplored. That same gleeful pottering accompanies our footsteps, and the music washes over us with themes of grandeur and adventure. All before a complete drop-off in tone and ambience towards the end. The tension splits the mood like butter, allowing you to take in your surroundings, recenter yourself as you ponder the mysteries of this new world. The music only echoes on from here as it plays out. The breeze picks up and leaves shift as we hear echoes of the melody form from Travelling Band, and even a hint of Gaia's lament, hinting of the journey to come. Across all 4 currently known tracks for Zone 1, there is a prominent feeling of liveliness, wonder, this idea of a newfound world. The final 2 pieces we know little about, however, one known as the Emerald Trek, teased but still not released by the team, and an unnamed piece from the Swamp timelapse they released on their YouTube channel. Swamps being in Zone 1, I figured this was fitting. The ominous, blurry, dreamlike melody feels blissful, like you're tasting the morning dew. The waters are still, adventure calls from beyond as the tranquil world you inhabit awakes. There's a lot of examples of motifs in the OST that have variations that work in very different ways, Slammer says. For example, this sample is from the Swamp ambient music, Gaia's Lament, and Snow Day, incorporated in increasingly complicated ways to give an atmospheric feeling, a sorrowful feeling, and a more adventurous feeling all at once. So we can see here that motifs aren't something that are just repeated. They can also be changed a little, using different instruments, paces, and layers to change the emotion of the same set of notes. Crossing over into the deserts of Zone 2 now, it's fitting that one of the first tracks is called Night on the Dunes. What a stark contrast we have here. Gone are the luscious trees and thick flowing rivers. There's still a sense of wonderment there, it's upbeat, but as the track plays, we feel a bit more uncertain. There's some mystery here in this new zone as the sun sets over the land. The pace slows under the stars as we get this Arabian Night style jingle. Towards the back, things pick up again. Like Oscar says, his music never expects you to be doing the exact same thing through and through. It moves with you. The music is on a journey of its own. There is an unnamed soundtrack for the Hytale's Desert Timelapse, which I think encapsulates the whole zone's atmosphere very well. The vast and enormous desert, the outstretch of land. This music makes you feel it, like you're a looming traveler with a long way to go. There's this hostile climate emanating from the terrain itself, like nature is out to get you. Not like Zone 1. There's far more themes of mystery here too. What ancient secrets are lying in wait? For Canyon of the Many Suns, Oscar said, "I was imagining a lost temple hidden deep within a canyon. Traversing treacherous terrain does take effort, and this track attempts to reflect the sense of accomplishment that accompanies the end of a long journey through the unknown." These Zone 2 tracks are definitely not cutting any slack. Life is hard out here in the dunes, and the factions of this zone have had to make do. Through pain and hardship, they have endured, and the story of these hidden structures will surely be revealed over time. Venture deep into one of those lost temple entrances and you may hear the track Ancient Tombs. I was imagining a dark desert tomb where you might happen upon an occult ritual, Oscar says. Evil magic runs through the veins of this hidden ruin. Now, this is something I like to read. Evil within the tomb? What lies there? Could it be Varen? There's only really one other nefarious feeling piece we've heard thus far. From the Varen Art time-lapse video, this music feels like you're mining deep within a cavern. A hostile area, surrounded by enemies perhaps. Mummies, zombies, spiders? Have you stumbled upon a crawler cave? Slammer chimes in here and says the music from the Varen Art time-lapse sounds very unique from the rest of the OST. But it shares the eerie similarity with the start of Ancient Tombs, and that might not be a coincidence. Listen here. Continuing, the music builds up into this holy, sacred, greater-than-thou culmination, a dastardly awe-filling presence discovered. The Hytale motif stretched out ominously in the background. Something chaotic is clearly going on in the depths of Zone 2. If not Varen, maybe it's the Sand Empress. Well, with all this scary talk comes a bit of sadness, as is the case with Gaia's Lament. Like a new adventure, Gaia's Lament is an exploration piece, but one that covers a different location and addresses a very different set of themes and emotions. With this piece, I wanted to focus on the lonely wasteland of Zone 2, evoking a barren, desolate expanse, as well as introspective feelings of pain and regret. The naming of this song is of course a little odd. Lament is an expression of grief and sorrow. The idea of Gaia being sorrowful or having lost something, perhaps even herself, is prominent here. But why? Why would you want sad, lonely music, for example, in Zone 2, but not Zone 1? I enjoy writing 4-part harmonies, which I've used to evoke a sort of classical requiem feel towards the end of the track. Oscar continues. I also began experimenting with space to create a sense of vast, lonely environment. It required some restraint, stretching material out over time and literally leaving open spaces in the music. This is particularly evident around 2:30, with the lonely flute crying out into the nothingness. I think Oscar's description here works better than mine ever could. Lament is a prime example of the contrasts being created between music, art, and story, from cute to epic, ongoing to introspective, upbeat to imposing. Despite this tonal range, however, it all needs to come together to form a coherent whole. Oscar did this, of course, by using motifs like we've discussed, but also with the use of interlinking themes and by using the same instruments to create the Hytale sound. Each area might have its own identity, yes, but there's also an overarching sound that binds them all together. Most tracks include several themes that link lore to location, as well as the main themes which glue everything together. Like a cue in a movie, a lot of the music might develop to end up somewhere very different from where you started, just like you can in the game. Things get frostier now as we venture into Zone 3. Of the first 3 starter zones, we know this one to be the most hostile. It's not barren like the desert, but the conditions are extreme, prompting even more extreme life to inhabit the place. Yetis, white wolves, outlander human tribes. Snowfall, not to be confused with Snow Day, is a Zone 3 track that is different from what we've heard so far. Reflecting the wintry climes of this beautiful but frequently dangerous part of Orbis, Oscar states, "I was imagining a vast snowy landscape with snow on the pine trees with some hints of my home country, Norway." He chose instruments and harmonies accordingly to evoke this, at times writing in this role-playing kind of way to try and give a level of cinematic immersion to the player. I think Snowfall best represents the balance between good and bad that exists within this zone, more so than the rest. The evil's presence here seems to be in majority. Snow Day, not to be confused with Snowfall, is another Zone 3 track that we were given last Christmas. It has these epic chimes. It gives me the thought of a lonesome cabin, despite being isolated, warm in the middle of the snow. Obviously, there's a danger in Borea, but there's beauty too. This track is much more hopeful, linking back to motifs from Zone 1. It seems union and companionship, or even the right kind of solitude amongst these pines, can shape an adventurer for the foreboding battles to come. In relation to the adaptation of motifs and how they can be changed to fit the emotion of the scene, Slammer said, "Here's another example of something similar going on between a new adventure, the desert ambient music, Snow Day, Snowfall, and ancient tombs." That one's pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. Moving on, Zone 4 is presented to us as this desolate wasteland, the devastated lands. But below the surface, we know, much like the classic tale Journey to the Center of the Earth, a whole prehistoric world thrives. A World Below is a track that represents all this and more. The idea of something greater, something similar to what you know, but from another time completely. Here, large beasts, dinosaurs roam the land, while Slothian tribes fish and gaze at the luminescent wildlife. The music feels almost prehistoric in nature, dangerous at first, like you're being hunted. But as you move through the caves, fear turns to mystery as you uncover this lost land, soon evolving into awe as the orchestration blows out and we get another great motif. Slammer says another cool comparison can be made between A New Adventure and A World Below, where in A World Below, the already adventurous motif from the first zone is adapted to Zone 4 in a way that makes it sound even more surprising and grandiose. Just listening to that originally, I knew that there was some similarity, but I just couldn't pick it out. Other than this, however, the only other musical pieces I could really find were the Yule log, which seemingly is a bit more Christmassy and less related to the world at large, and these time-lapse videos, which all have a similar track that is, once again, dreamy and ethereal almost. It feels magical as you hear these sprinkling sounds. The build-ups are inviting, the culminations are soothing. Even this video of the dog had a sweet and gentle melody that was thought-provoking and at times almost felt like you were floating in the void. So that's everything we've heard so far. Many tracks uniting different zones together under one sound. There is also one other form of music in Hytale we're yet to hear though, and that is of course the noise of the instruments. Personally, I'm really intrigued to see how they turn music into a gameplay feature. Many games the devs have likely played have done this successfully in the past. Ocarina of Time, Animal Crossing New Leaf, and Note Blocks in Minecraft and Mario. Heck, there's a whole genre dedicated to timing your controls to the beat called rhythm games. In a way, it's easy to think that tricks like motifs, repeated melodies, and the merging of songs is the only thing that makes this music so alluring, so enjoyable, like a cheat code or a shortcut, but it's not. That's not what makes good music. Making good music is about knowing how to use those tricks, where and when to choose to call back to a moment with the leitmotif, how to twist melodies to represent characters, places, the flow of time, and most importantly, the feelings of the player. Sure, a good musician can make a motif, but a great musician can use one too, in complex ways with many overlapping techniques on top of that. And that's the difference with Hytale. That's the beauty of Hytale's music. And of course, composed by Oscar Garvin. Thanks for listening to me on this one. It wasn't sponsored, so any extra support is super appreciated. Thank you so much again for 50k. Seriously, halfway to 100k, that's insane. Insert cliche, over-the-top thank you statement right here. You guys know that it means a lot. Hopefully the music kept you entertained. Make sure to check out Slammer, as she is the one that pointed out all of the amazing motifs. As always, you can click the join button for perks, and if you want to join a Discord with over 3,500 Hytale enthusiasts such as yourself, then click the Kweebec Corner server link in the description. Continue smiling, thank you for liking, subscribing, and thanks as always for watching Kweebec Corner. Stay safe and keep free.